Hello everyone, it's a pleasure to be on the show once again, and it's good to have you as well. Join me on the show called The Thesis. Well, we have an amazing history lesson, a great story, and a super personality with me in the studio who I am going to unravel on this edition of The Thesis. Welcome to the studios, Professor Dr. Sushila Mendes. It's a pleasure to have you. Doctor, it's nice to, I got a quick peek into what Doctor has to tell all of us here, and that's exactly what you have to stay in store. Professor Doctor, if you could share with us the title of your thesis. That's the reason why you're here. So before we get into your history of you, so if you could tell us. Yes.
My thesis is titled Luis the Mendes Braganza and the Rise of Political Consciousness in Goa. And the period I'm dealing with is his lifespan from 1878 to 1938. That period in Goan politics.
All right. What made you choose this topic, or
Well, it has a background to it because my dad, Advocate Luis Mendes, was a freedom fighter, and he and Dr. Julião Menezes were the editors of a newsletter called Gomantak, and they were the organ of the Gomantak Praja Mandal, which was formed 6 months after the death of Luis Menezes Braganza. So basically it was his ideology that came into the formation of the Gomantak Praja Mandal, and that's from there it started. To study his ideology, to study his influences on the Goan liberation movement, etc.
So it deals with a lot of his personal history. If you could just unravel a little bit.
Yes, a thesis is always about the backdrop, because you write on any subject, but when you write on Goan history, it is always about the backdrop of the introduction, the setting. So my thesis has a 100-page synoptic account of the history of Goa. So if anybody wants to read about the history of Goa, it's there. It's unrelated to my subject of research, but as a background. And then I have about 9 chapters on Menezes Braganza's ideas and his work and his activism.
You've continued writing, I think. So was the thesis your kind of building block to writing the so many books that you've written?
Well, actually, I've not written a lot of books, but a lot of research articles. And I do write in local newspapers, research themes. I have a weekly contribution in Marathi Gomantak. So your question was with regard to what, why I did this writing. Actually, this, you can call me a late bloomer, because I had personal commitments before getting into serious hardcore research. And let me tell you, Bambino, this is not the first. I had registered before at the time of my marriage, and then the babies came, and my mother had to be looked after as my 3rd baby. So my guide passed away in Portugal, so it was automatically just pushed away. And in research, it's very important to study more about little. That was a mistake I made the first time. So it was like a wide ocean, and I was just swimming without meeting the end. So my first topic was with regard to Goan freedom fighters. So it was just unending. Though I did a lot of work in going to Delhi, to the Nehru Memorial Museum and Library. I interviewed people in Goa, but I had to just place it aside. And then I had to just take one person and work on him. That was a more kind of achievable end. Yeah.
And it was, I'm sure it must have been a passion, kind of not only your topic, but writing and finding more about Luis Braganza must have been something
yes,
there,
because, he was a contributor to so many newspapers till he zeroed down on his own newspaper, Udibat. But before that, he would write for other people's newspapers, like O Nacionalista. Surprisingly, it is not patriotic nationalism, but exactly the opposite, where the Portuguese nation was being spoken well about. And then you have other newspapers which he wrote, O Comércio, And his own began with O Dibat, but continued with Prakasha and Pradeepa.
Goa, of course, had the first printing press, and lots of our eminent Goans did write a lot and, contributed a lot to history. Anybody in your family, I know your dad also was there, in your family who kind of inspired you to,
See, my dad passed away when I was in standard 7. So he died young at the age of 57. So, but today I read him in the Goan Tribune, in the Gomantak. So I read his articles that he has written on the Goan seafarers and on the Goan clubs in Bombay. And on the, he was the president of the Maritime Seafarers Union, and also in the Goan political convention which went to Delhi to meet Pandit Nehru. So I see my father's contribution through the writings that he has done today. But it was not, I was not influenced by anybody except the fact that I was interested in researching about why Luis de Menezes Braganza inspired so many, because he died in 38, and then in 39 you have Gomantak Praja Mandal, in 46 you have the civil disobedience movement, in 54 you have the Satyagraha movement, and then it follows. So this was the beginning, sort of lighting the spark to the struggle.
That's right. Professor Doctor, can you elaborate a little bit more about the contents of your thesis? If you have any paragraphs that you like to share with us.
Though the thesis is about a person, Luis Menezes Braganza, his lifespan covers 3 different eras of Portuguese history and therefore Goan history. From 1822 to 1910, you have a period of liberal constitutional monarchy. And unlike British India, Goans were given seats in the Portuguese parliament. So there were parliamentarians from 1822 onwards. And you have Francis Luis Gomes, so many, And from 1910, you have the Republic. So with the Republic, there were winds of change where the Hindus were in the mainstream. Before this, Hindus were generally not given government jobs in the municipalities, in government bodies. So in 1910, you have this coming together of communities in Goa and liberalism. But unfortunately, in 1926 onwards, in between you have dictatorships, you have the coming of Salazar and then dictatorship. So till 61 it was Salazar's, although he was quite old by that time, but he was the in charge at that time. Now my thesis has 10 chapters, and because there was so much to write, because the first chapter is generally an introductory chapter where you talk about the reasons for writing this thesis and what were your inspiration. Since this thesis is honed into a book, that comes in the preface of the book, because the reasons for choosing this topic, etc. My book, the foreword is written by Maria Aurora Couto, and I think she was the only one in Goa who knew a lot about Menezes Braganza. Because when you do your thesis, Bambino, you have to reach a state of being when nobody knows more than you about your work, and you are able to answer every question raised on that subject. You have to reach that state in academics. But Maria Bai was somebody who was well read, and she was knowing about, because she read Portuguese, and Menezes Braganza wrote only in Portuguese. I have given a chapter to his free thought. I have given another chapter to his work as a journalist, because he wrote in Odibat, he wrote in Prakasha, Pradeepa, 2 newspapers, but his newspaper printing press was ransacked by the Portuguese. And his family members have told me that 1 year after it was ransacked, he had a heart attack at the young age of 60 years. So there are other chapters like his social commitments. He was against caste. He was for the Konkani language, to teach the Konkani language at the primary level. He spoke openly on these issues. He was a member of the Institute Vasco da Gama. At that time, he was a member of the congresses. There were provincial congresses. He wrote about the national leaders in his newspapers, like Motilal Nehru, Gokhale, even about Mahatma Gandhi, about Swami Vivekanand, about the Hindu Mahasabha. And he always wrote about the greatness of the Indian civilization. He said that before the Europeans came to India, our civilization was much more advanced. We had the Mahabharata, we had the Artha Shastra, and we had a civilization which was very progressive. So Menezes Braganza spoke against the Acto Colonial in 1930, which degraded Goans. Till then, Goans and the Portuguese in Lisbon were equal citizens. But in 1930, Goans became assimilados, indigenous people, in all the colonies. So the Portuguese, the fair-skinned, were more superior. And the Acto Colonial had other things like compulsory military service, etc. So there were protest movements where he took part. So in one sentence you can say that this Luis Menezes Braganza, more than the man and the illustrious family that he came from, in fact his mother had two sisters. One sister gave birth to T.B. Cunha, and another sister gave birth to Antonio Braganza Pereira, the famous writer of Ethnographia, an important book in Goan history. So all three were born of three sisters, the famous Braganza house in Shandor, and they were stalwarts in their own area of work. So his ideology, his free thought, his social commitment to society, his writings as a journalist, the fact that he was so fearless and so focused in what he was doing. He spoke about fighting mental servitude. So these are very inspirational for all of us. You know, in our present society, when there's so much of corruption and so much of nepotism and so much of inequality, his ideas become all the more relevant, all the more important, because his ideas need to be disseminated among the younger people so that they are more empowered. You know, ideas and education make you empowered. So that's why I thought of publishing into a book, from my thesis into a book.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
So he's a man that he had not only a foresight but even an insight into the past, and inspired I think the Goa's freedom struggle.
You know, the journalists of yesteryears are not like the journalists of today. They wrote for a cause, not for money. In fact, they used the family money for writing. All the writers, whether all the freedom fighters who wrote Lokmanya Tilak, the Kesari Maratha, they were writers with a cause. I'm not against the present day journalist. Times have changed, but during freedom struggle, one has to respect these writers because they were going against the tide. It's easy to go with the tide. You know, so they faced a lot of opposition. Even his press was broken into, and that was a great setback. So I salute these people who didn't use their education only to make money, but they had a commitment to the society of their time, you know, which was a colonial society in Goa and a colonial society in the rest of the country. So I always say that we need to, not forget the sacrifices of our leaders, because in Goa especially, so many non-Goans died for Goa. And we are talking about Goans, non-Goans. The Goa Vimochan Sahayak Samiti, where the Satyagraha came into Goa, people like Karnal Singh from Punjab, a young boy of 22 years just married, he sacrificed his life. People from Karnataka, from Tamil Nadu, they all came into Goa and they were ready to die for Goa. So it's not that Goa is the baby of Goans. You know, we need to remember the fact that the rest of the country helped Goa to be liberated.
So now that we know a little bit why we have Professor Dr. Sushila Mendes here with us, well, let me also tell you that apart from the lovely story that she has, as now we will go in a little rewind mode. She is somebody who has done a lot. So if you could take us back in time about your school days, any memorable times in school and college. You studied in Mumbai, came to Goa.
Right. I began my studies in Mary Immaculate's, but because of a family tragedy where my 21-year-old sister, a graduate from Dembe, passed away, the whole family moved to Bombay to look after her, to get best medical treatment. And then I remained there from standard 3 to standard 12. So I was very privileged, I can say, to go to one of Mumbai's very, you can say, elite school. It is J.B. Petit. It is the top 10 in the country today, but 50 years ago it was the top 10 in Maharashtra. So it's a Parsi school basically, it's a ICSE school, and I had my formative years there because I was the only Roman Catholic in the whole school. They were mostly Parsis, Gujaratis, and at that time the surnames didn't really matter, but they were Mafatlals and Thakarsis and Amarsis. So now as I wind back, I realize they are, you know, I was privileged to be with this section, and the Parsis basically are very simple and good people. So I grew up with that religion rather than my own religion, because as my parents were not very strict about, they were not strict church goers, and they never spoke about the religion. In fact, my father spoke about Buddhism to me, and the Four Noble Truths and the Eightfold Path. I remember this kind of talk, you know, as a child for the time that he was there. But then St. Xavier's and the Jesuits were very inspiring also. My standard 11th and 12th, especially Father John Correa Fons, he was a historian. He had the Harris Institute there, and as 16, 17-year-olds, he would take us to Bassein and Vasai and show all the forts, and that was very inspirational to my mind.
Practical learning.
Yes, to take up history. Otherwise, people think history is a very dead subject, but Father John made it very live. And thereafter, again, it was family circumstances where there was nobody to look after my mom because she was very old, because I was born 17 years after marriage. And I came back to Goa to look after her, basically. So I was in Carmel College. And Carmel College gave me a very good exposure because, you know, the nuns would send me for inter-college competitions, and I would win prizes at inter-college levels for declamation and oratory, and I was declared Orator of Carmel College and the General Secretary of the Students' Council. And it was there that I got a very good opportunity to represent Goa for NCC paratrooping. So that was 3 jumps only, but we were trained like horses from morning to night. And a good thing about this adventure sports is that it makes you very fearless. You know, if you can face death, you can face anything. That type of attitude develops in you, and it makes you a very strong person. So I would really advocate adventure sports to the youth, because in the formation of all-round personality, this attitude is very important.
Would you jump off and try to do paratrooping at this age now?
I wouldn't mind, because physically I'm not old, though chronologically I may be. But you know, it's like swimming or cycling. Once you learn it, it's your skill for life. And you've learned the techniques, and you need to polish it, and you just get into it.
Yes, I think just like a girl who, I mean, or a lady who, when you progress, a little bit of, self-defense and making sure that you're street smart plays a big vital role, and I think it should be inculcated in youngsters, especially the kids, you know. You know,
nowadays. At our college level, school level, this all-round personality is so important to sustain your life, to be a survivor. You know, so these soft skills are very important. And I've had the privilege of teaching in schools which are underprivileged. So I began my career in Adarsh Vanita Vidyalay, teaching 8th, 9th, 10th English, history. And then I taught in Kurchore, in CT Naik High Secondary, history and political science. And for the past 33 years, I'm in Government College, Kepe, for a few months in Khandola. But we have the first generation learners, Bambino, in Kepe. And they want to learn, and they want to be somebody in life, and they don't have rich parents. So we are the people who mentor these people. And then today, over the past 33 years, they are advocates and judges and, mamladars and IAS, so many, and they've progressed so far.
It must be very satisfying for you as a teacher.
It is absolutely satisfying, because it is not only a well-paid job, but it is a very, when you involve with the young people, you remain young yourself. And it's a great thing to look forward to in the morning. So, and the students respect you so much, because, at the higher level, it's not just teaching, it is teaching and learning. It's not exactly like a primary school. It's not only classroom teaching. We have to publish papers, we have to write in university care journals, in Scopus, in Web of Science. We have to write books. So I'm on my second book on the history of Asolna Veling Kunkoli. And then we publish papers, we attend seminars. I'll be going for an international seminar.
If I may interrupt you, you're one of the very few, doctors who have a professor, prefix to, like professor doctor. If you could quickly run our viewers to, what and how you achieved that goal.
At the university level, everybody who joins automatically became a professor. But at the undergraduate level, at colleges, after 30 years of teaching, I was permitted to even think that I could be a professor. So in the 6th Pay Commission, that was recognized that UG teachers can also apply. So I did apply for the 6th Pay Commission, where you have to have 5 publications, and you have to have a lot of other things like normally when you are a 30-year-old teacher, you have complied with them, correcting papers and your teaching workload, and your giving public speeches, all that is complied. But there was a problem with 6th Pay, where there was only a 10% capping. So all our 5 government colleges were taken as one unit, and only 10% of those got. So 8 government college lecturers were declared professors. So though I passed the screening committee and the interview, because of that capping, I may have been 9 or 10 where I did not get. So the 7th Pay Commission was even stricter. You needed to have 10 publications in proper journals, academic journals, with ISBN numbers and all that, and minimum 1 in a Scopus or a Web of Science. So I took about a year to complete that, and I opened the door again. So then you answer a full-fledged interview with everybody representing whoever is somebody in the academic field, like the Registrar of Goa University, the Director of Education, the principals of your college, and women's representative, and whatever they're all principals, who are questioning you, and you are defending yourself. It was even more difficult than defending your own thesis. Because here you are prepared for it. There they can just ask you anything. You teach history, so from ancient history to modern history to medieval history. And surprisingly, my specialization is history of Goa, but I was not asked that. So I had to be an all-rounder. You have to be knowing everything about history. Otherwise, you flunk that exam. And so this professors have been whole of Goa, we are just 3. So at the undergraduate level. So it is self-validating. It's not a title, but it validates your worth.
Yes,
Yeah.
that's right.
Yeah.
I mean, after spending so much time in this, it's due to be recognized for what you have done over the last 40 years in the teaching as a
Right.
teacher. Yeah,
That's
you've
true.
taught right from the primary to the college section and
Yes.
dedicated. I'm sure there are many of our viewers who have been your students and have reached their peak. Now you've taken us through everything. If given a chance, like, say, okay, keep your history books aside, what would be, how would you spend your day at home or
See,
out?
I have
Any
been,
hobbies?
I have a lot of hobbies. Writing for people to read in newspapers, in magazines is what I do all the time, like The Wire, on request from editors, a weekly column. But my heart is more with community service. So I have been in a family of that orientation, and I entered in Progressive Students Union, a person from Bombay, new to Goa. In fact, I gave a speech about why students should be out of politics. And then all these people who were student leaders, like my present husband, Advocate Cleofato, Desmond, Mohandas Lolinkar, Sandesh Prabhudesai, they all kind of cornered me and trying to explain that what you are saying is not true. And somehow they succeeded in veering me into the movement. So we wrote a newsletter called Udent, where we actually went to the scene, saw for ourselves, observed and wrote. And once I retire, I'm sure I will do some community service. I will continue with my writing, of course. I have a family also, but I have a vision to do. I have also done my LLB. So I want to utilize it. So far I have just published a book in Konkani Devanagari called Bailo Ani Kaide. It's more of a booklet, just to make people aware of the bare acts, But I would like to utilize my services, to put it simply, to free prisoners. So maybe I'll work with the prison missions. And my daughter always says, how will you know when a prisoner is innocent or guilty? Because I genuinely feel that a lot of people in our nation don't deserve to be in prison, but because of their poverty, because of their lack of finances, and they cannot engage good lawyers, they are there. So this is a commitment, if I have a good health, I will do it. And possibly do some kind of community service or what you call social work, because I've earned enough of money. I don't need to, I have enough to look after myself, me and my husband together.
All right. Any places that you'd like to travel maybe?
Traveling is on my bucket list, because I was, I'm a travel person. So my husband is not. In fact, he was shying away from making a passport.
Then
so
if you buy 2 tickets, then I can come with you.
No, in fact, he doesn't. Some people hate traveling. He's one of those. So he would say, I don't have a passport, I can't travel.
Oh, he doesn't have a passport yet? Or
in fact, my children who are engineers did their father's passport. And then immediately I took him on a tour of East Europe, then another tour of West Europe. And then before COVID, we had almost paid the money to go to UK, Ireland, England, and Scotland.
I'm sure you must be, learning a lot when you go on your holidays as well, or
Definitely.
you just leave it for leisure.
See, the thing is, when you travel, you learn so much that you don't do in a classroom. In fact, in the West, the students are encouraged to take a 1-year break and go knapsacking, and see people and see places. So I was fortunate to stay in Portugal on a scholarship for 3 months to do my PhD. So I used to utilize the Saturdays, Sundays to see the place. And I made friends in the libraries, archives. Together with them, I went to Spain. I saw the Biblioteca, the National Library of Spain. I worked there. and I constantly go to Portugal to present papers. So I've gone thereafter once, and I'll be going next month again. So wherever I get an opportunity, but I would like to see Australia, I would like to see South America, North America. I think one should see all these things before life ends. So I would first of all like to go wherever I have relatives in Canada, and and then concentrate on Aztecs and Mayas, Inca civilization in South America. Being a history teacher, we learn about these civilizations. So it's so interesting to go there yourself and see them, And when you have somebody with you, like next month, another history teacher would be coming with me. So it always helps rather than going alone, although I would not mind doing that also. So my kids have grown up, they have lives of their own, so I wouldn't like them to tag along, and they have their own jobs. So, but traveling is what I'm looking forward to after retiring.
So have you already packed your bag and...
Almost, starting with next month,
Right.
and then following it in May, because my husband being a lawyer, he's free only once a year, that is in May. So every May I don't lose an opportunity. So we are most likely going out of the country in May.
So you tell him, so yeah, May am ospada
Yes,
to
yes.
moche galan, May galan raum.
Right. He has no choice. And he, poor fellow, comes just to please me.
I'm sure, Mr. Mendes, you must be having a lovely holiday. I mean, your wife is just waiting to take you on a holiday. You should go for that holiday.
Many people make this mistake. His surname is not Mendes.
Okay.
His surname is Almeida Coutinho.
Okay, so
I have retained my
your
maiden surname.
Okay.
And when people call him Mr. Mendes, he knows that that person has nothing to do with him. So, I have, my children have their paternal names,
Right.
Almeida Coutinho, and I dare not add
four
surnames
surnames to him.
in those computer blocks. So, but he's very happy with me keeping my own surname. It's never been a contentious issue.
Right, fantastic. So, if you'd like to, is there anything else you'd like to share with our viewers, or maybe a message?
See, I'm basically very excited with life. So many people's shoulders I have leaned on, like Dr. Teotonio D'Souza and my own guide, Dr. Shambat, and my husband and my kids and my colleagues and my friends. They kind of are my cheerleaders, and I feel it's so important in life to have your own cheerleaders to encourage you in doing whatever you are doing. It's lovely to go to Kepen College because the staff there are very encouraging and very, dependable. So that's my second family because I'm there for 33 years. So we have gone through the process of NAC, and I've been in charge of IQAC and, the quality assurance cell, the chairperson of the NAC steering committee, various important this. So today the college is a A grade college, and when I look back, I feel I would be in that college again because I've enjoyed my journey. So I basically am a very I'm a balanced person. I like seeing films, I like sports, I like reading and writing. And I tell my students, you stop being bookworms, you enjoy life, you study also, but you get that degree under your belt with a good class. But you are going to fail if it's only that. You need to have your soft skills, you need to be a all-rounded person. And I've never had to use influence for my jobs. I've just answered interviews and got them. Because of my other qualifications which have held me in good stead. It's not just my degrees. Although I have studied a lot of academic degrees like B.Ed, LLB, in addition to my MA and PhD. So that is what makes you stronger, more respected in society when you are well studied, well learned. So education cannot be replaced by anything, and good friends, people, you need to go with the positive people in your life and just keep aside the negative people. because you're going nowhere with them. So in life you come across two categories of people. You need to be able to differentiate and go with the positive flow. That's what I have been doing, and that's why life has been very enjoyable for me.
Fantastic. You really kind of summed up your entire journey in that lovely message. And I'm sure our viewers, you'll have to probably rewind that part a little bit if you're watching it on YouTube. So don't forget to follow us on YouTube, and do share with us your thoughts and insights. And like I always say, if you have any of your family or friends who we can host on the show, do let us know. Amazing speaking to you, and thank you so much, Professor Doctor, for your words. I'm sure there are many of our viewers who shall surely be enlightened by that. Even parents, because nowadays there are many parents who force kids, oh, just study, But the trend is changing now. There are many who see that the kids have some other likes, maybe music or sports, and that's how you need to be an all-rounder.
And thank you, Bambino, because I hope our conversation will act like an inspiration tool for parents, for students, for whoever, because you need to enjoy life, basically. And then you need to excel in whatever you are doing. So thank you so much for this opportunity.
Yeah, it's my pleasure indeed. So there you are, to all of you, wherever you are watching this lovely program, The Thesis. It's time for me to say goodbye to you, but we've had a wonderful story that you can keep on reading time and time again. Till we meet you again, it's time for me to say goodbye to you, and we hope to see you someday, somewhere, of course, on The Thesis. Keep watching CCR TV.